Hello, and thanks for joining us. The Unidentified Celebrity Review will begin in just a couple minutes, and it's going to be a fun one today. This week, we had a massive announcement from the scientific community, a UAP study led by Avi Loeb and other prominent scientists. Advisor to the project, Paul Davies, was on UCR Monday, and Avi Loeb was on the Singularity Lab yesterday. They were incredibly exciting conversations. And after a somewhat lackluster UAP task force report, this scientific exploration gives us hope that the future will bring new, undisputed evidence of UAP. But for that, we have to wait. But while we wait, we can explore areas the Galileo Project won't touch. Historic events. We'll be talking about one of the most famous historic events today, Roswell. The Discovery Plus has a very interesting new show on the topic, purporting to provide the final verdict on the issue. We have one of that show's stars, Jane Kyle, here to discuss. And that show takes interviews of witnesses some 50 years after the fact and applies modern AI technology to determine truth from lies. I found it extremely interesting. But while watching it, I couldn't help but shake a depressing vision. Imagine the year 2054, 50 years after the Nimitz incident, and we've learned nothing more about UAP. A Discovery Plus channel show of the day might feature an aging David Fravor and Alec Dietrich, recounting their classic tale in shaky, elderly voices. The producers might have also dug up children of naval crew members who recount the stories their parents told them in confidence. Young people watching the show treat it as most view Roswell now, a curiosity. An event where the truth is lost to time. This possibility chills me. Most of us assume that someday, relatively soon, we will get answers. And I'm in that group, but I think that we'll only get the future we desire if we work for it. Things like supporting the Galileo Project, lighting a fire under Congress with events like the Big Phone Home 2, and keeping the topic alive and in the social consciousness. Lou and Mike are both putting in the work, putting on this show and the Singularity Lab, bringing incredibly informative guests and information to us. You're doing your part, all 65 of you in the live chat, participating and influencing the show. And even if you're just listening, you're keeping the topic alive in your consciousness. You know, if you're able to do more, please share this show with others and broaden the impact. Find Lou's Patreon link in the description and help ensure the sustainability of this show by pledging a monthly donation. Everything is appreciated. And with your support, the UFO shows in 2054 might feature aliens from all corners of the galaxy in a panel discussion led by two people you already know quite well. Starts right here. Our host of the Celebrity Review, Luis Jimenez, and maybe Michael Mataluni.
He's gonna be here soon. He's having some huge technical issues right now, but that's live. You know, we got to roll with the punches, rather. So guess
I'm sure
what?
He'll get it figured out.
Guess what, rather? You're Michael Mataluni right now.
I don't have a shaved head, but I'll do my best.
Yeah. Just go. Yeah, just get a what do they call those? A smoky laugh. Just grab yourself a smoky lab, maybe a couple packs of cigarettes, and we'll get this thing going, baby. I'll shave your head. Anyway, hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. My name's Luis Jimenez. That is one of our co-hosts, Mr. Rather Be Squidding. Michael Mataluni will be joining us in a couple of minutes as soon as he figures out his audio and tech issues. In the meantime, We've got a really great show for you today. Before we get to that, though, I want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. And if you were listening to Singularity Lab yesterday, we were able to meld the sponsor and a question with Avi Loeb. It was a lot of fun. And also want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes that you hear on the show. If you haven't already, do us the enormous favor. Like, share, subscribe. Tell everybody what we're doing. This is a good time. We're going to have a really good time today. We got Jane Kyle, UFO researcher, also known as UFO Jane, and was on the brand new Discovery Plus channel television show called Roswell: The Final Verdict. She was in 2 episodes. I'm super excited to talk about it with her. She's on here all the time. She's no stranger to the show. Miss Jane Kyle. How are ya, Jane?
It's so good to be back.
Yeah, we missed you last Wednesday. You were in Jamaica.
I felt like it was a year that passed by. I feel like I walked into an alternate universe.
Well, you've got a really nice tan working right now, girl.
Yeah, I will not last long. You know?
That's okay. That's okay. Well, look who decided to get his internet under control, or his computer under control, Mr. Michael Mataluni. Welcome, sir.
You guys hear me okay?
Oh, it's great. Sounds great.
Oh, so much better. I was so concerned because I thought I was going to have to go from camera 2 over here. You can see camera 2 right here, and the audio was not quite up to par. So I think we figured it out. I think we're good to go.
Yeah, I think you look great. You sound great. Although people have been saying that you might not be the real Michael Mataluni. That's the word on Twitter. And you know when Twitter has rumors, pretty reliable.
I agree, and it's very possible. I mean, I can't, I definitely think if your body was snatched and it was replaced by an alternate consciousness, would you guys even be able to tell? I think that's the thing. You probably wouldn't.
Well,
I think we need to devise a couple secret questions that we tell each other and confirm the answers before each show.
Almost, like safe words.
It's like Muppets Most Wanted when Kermit gets replaced by the evil frog, and not even Miss Piggy realizes it because they're so greedy and they just want to take advantage of Kermit's, the benefits, of riding on his coattails. It's just like that.
That's exactly what it is, Michael. Okay, so let's.
It's all clear now. It's all clear.
Everything now makes sense.
Yes.
Learn a lot from the Muppets.
It's all good. Okay, so today what I want to talk about, we're going to get to Jeremy Corbell and the Chad Underwood interview in the second hour of the day. We're also going to be bringing in Fringe UFO podcasts. I'm so embarrassed right now. I'm forgetting his name. Manny Miranda. Manny Miranda is going to be joining us on the show in hour 2 to talk about the Jeremy Corbell interview and also the Mick West and Chris Lito debate that happened because he had a pretty interesting suggestion and I thought it was spot on, so I wanted to talk to him about it. Okay, so Jane, congratulations, first of all. I'm going to tell you right off the bat because you know how we're hard here, right? Like we're pretty tough on shows that have to do with the topic of UFOs. We love reviewing them, but we are incredibly hard on these shows. And I got to tell you, and I think Rather's with me as well, I liked this show a lot. Like, it was good. Entertainment factor, 9. I'd watch it again.
Oh, that's strong.
It was really, really fun to watch. It was a blast to watch. Now, I don't know if I could rate it on science because there was no real science angle to it. There was no explanation of the AI. Like, they didn't go into a lot of details of how the AI works.
AI ever.
Right, the best AI ever. But I did have fun with it, and FYI, if you don't have Discovery Plus, they're doing a 7-day free trial. They're not paying me to say this. I genuinely enjoyed the show. Like, it was fun, and you can check out the entire season. I binge watched it. It's 6 episodes, right, Jane?
Yeah, it's 6 episodes, and I think I might actually be in 3. I thought it was just 1, but it's at least 2, maybe 3. So I won't tell you which ones though, because you should watch the whole thing.
Yeah,
Of course.
absolutely.
But yeah, I actually enjoyed it too. Even and I actually, I would say, being biased, I'd probably be more likely to dislike it, because you maybe know more behind the scenes or things like that, and there's not the magic of it. But yeah, I actually enjoyed it.
Well, let me ask you this real quick. Did they give you, what was the, because I know you didn't get to see the AI in action, right? I don't think you got to see. Okay, so what was sort of the explanation to you? What did they come to you with? What was like, okay, Jane, so here's the deal. Have you seen Knight Rider? Okay, do you know the supercomputer car that takes care of that? Well, basically, we redeveloped that machine, and now it can tell if people are lying, and we apply this AI to all of these witnesses. That's how it went down, right? That's basically what the producer said to you?
Well, you should probably work for the Travel Channel and Discovery Channel and help them pitch shows, because that
didn't happen.
I mean, I really wasn't given any much more than what the audience was given, and just that, there's this AI lie detection technology that they're going to use for these existing testimonies, and so to refresh on everything that I knew about Roswell and react to all of the AI results, even more than what ended up on TV. And then the hardest part was I couldn't tell anybody anything, so I had to just kind of wait and hope that the show came out and that people would be able to find out the results.
That's what I was wondering, did they tell you the results and tell you to react to it, or did they say react as if it was true and then react as if it was false, kind of thing?
No, I mean, they're definitely, smart, savvy people, and helped, I think, I'm sure, to set us all up well to sound intelligent for sure. But we were absolutely just speaking our own opinions the whole time and given the actual true or false to react to. So we were finding out in real time and reacting on camera in real time.
So how much of the reaction sequences did you have that didn't actually make it to film? I'm just curious, like, to what extent, like, how much work you did versus what actually made it to film?
Oh yeah, for sure. Probably like less than half. Yeah. I think I recall researching and talking about almost everything, that was in the series. And, I was pleased that even just a little soundbite made it, at the end of the day, because that's how TV goes, as I'm sure, Luis.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, it also depends, like, the difference between how you get paid when you get in there versus if you don't make the cut. It's a huge difference. I don't know if it's that big a difference with would they call this reality TV, or is this it's like a docu-series? I'm not sure. It's in that vein.
Let's say docu-series, yeah.
Yeah, docu-series sort of vein. Jean-Francois Chalebois. Thank you so much for the $69.99 Canadian donation. I want to call everything a loony. Is that what it is?
$69.99 loony. Yep,
ooh,
that's right.
I like that. That's way better than dollar. I think that going from the AI, I think going from less than the AI predicts to greater than to, is that, am I reading that right? Because I'm reading that as like a math equation. Anybody else want to read this?
Yeah,
I think that going from,
you had saying the AI predicts this to be true, which is kind of like the ancient alien theorists suggest. It's, it
right.
Scientifically accurate, the AI predicts, but then the researchers, probably including myself, then say, well, now we know for sure, that this person is telling the truth, or now we know for sure that alien bodies were recovered, and that this happened in Roswell and things like that. So I totally get that comment, and I will just say, if there were sensational things that, I said or other UFO researchers said, at least in my case, it was sincere, though, because you are reacting to these witness testimonies, you studied for a while, and you have a lot invested in it. And so it is, when something comes out to be true, you are, I was really surprised.
Okay, so here's my question on this, because here's what I said to myself when I watched it, especially when you were on. I was like, damn, man, Jane is such a damn historian on this stuff. She really knows her shit. And I was like, God, I gotta remind myself that she's on our show every Wednesday, and we really should pick her brain a lot more than we do, because I mean, she really knew every single witness, every single story behind the witness, you know, what they saw. But let me ask you this: when production came to you, did they give you, okay, here are the witnesses we're talking about, here's the stories? Did they give you the history of those people, or did you go out and do your own research and do your own homework on all of these folks? Watch the videos one by yourself? I mean, like, how intense was your studying?
All of the above.
Okay.
So they gave me a heads up on the witnesses and history they would be asking about, and I didn't really trust that. So I mean, I reviewed it, but I haven't done, you know, much TV. So I definitely did like a whole complete separate deep dive, and, you know, watched, you know, videos of. And what's interesting though is a lot of the testimony that they included in this series, there isn't a lot of information out there to find out. So I learned some things as being part of the show, and then I also have a number, I guess, of contextual things just from my reporting over the years that relate to Roswell that I didn't get a chance to share, but I definitely refreshed my memory on my own, you know, UFO investigating history and sort of things that I've, I guess, deduced about Roswell. So yeah, I'd say all of the above, and that's probably my nature to be over prepared, you know, for something like this.
So based on your previous, so based on your previous studying of Roswell.
Hold on, wait. We got it. Jane, that might be. Hold on.
Check.
I think it's Jane. I'm not sure. Hold on. Check. Yeah, it's Jane.
Check.
Okay, so we'll let's see if you can just unplug it real quick, Jane. I'm sure she'll fix it. She's
yeah.
awesome.
As
Okay,
you're
what's
doing,
your question?
I'm gonna ask the question as she's doing it. Hopefully she can hear me.
How about
and then
this?
know what you're
Let's save your question. Sorry, Michael. Let's do this because we got a $5 donation from ACAC. Or $5 pound note. It says, can't give much. The Martian ambassador is doing our taxes, but just wanted to show some support and hope things are getting better for you, Luis, and girlfriend.
Aww.
Thank you. That is an absolute godsend. Thank you so much. Michelle's getting better and better by the day, which is really nice. Like I said, we just visited her neuro surgeon, and they're going to get an MRI on her next week, and things. The prognosis is positive, but it's going to take a little while. But thank you so much, you guys, for constantly showing her love on Twitter. She's been absolutely overwhelmed, and it's been helping her heal. Believe it or not, like reading your guys' messages and stuff. So thank you. Honestly, it's a very, very kind and sweet of you. And then we also got another $5 super sticker from Athena the Poop. These names today. Like I love the super stickers. I love the super chats. It always, of course, helps the show. But damn, you're really making me sound silly today. So, but I appreciate it, you guys. It's I feel the love, and it's much appreciated. Okay, so with that out of the way, Michael,
Yes.
what is your question?
So I'm really curious to pick your brain, Jane, about your experience having studied this previously, and then you did a deep dive before the show. Then you actually did the show, and then you watched the show. And I'm curious if anything changed for you about Roswell, or where you sit now versus where you were prior to doing this.
Good question. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, so I would say, and I'm trying to figure out the mic issue. I'll try to still figure it out while we are live. But yeah, so I would say it just reinvigorated my interest in Roswell, and I'm just kind of like, you know, the Tic Tac UFO is interesting and all that stuff, like, is good and well, the UAP report, but it's more just like we want to know what happened at Roswell. We want to know if the gray aliens are real, and going through all of this history, even though I was aware of it before, but going over it all at once and being forced to, just like, oh my gosh, there are so many witnesses who are saying the same thing over and over and over again. And it's totally overwhelming. And it's just, there's no way, of course, there's no way it was a weather balloon, but there's no way it was a top secret weather balloon and tested. So I think it inspires me again to care about disclosure and want to further it beyond, this recent sliver of Navy reports and get back to 1947 eventually. I'm sure it will take a while, but
it's interesting you say that, because there's a lot of folks who are going in the opposite direction, right? A lot of people are going, you look at the Galileo project, right? And Avi Loeb, we talked to him yesterday, and he's like, we are not going back in time. We are going to focus on building this data. But I think it's important for a lot of different people to focus on a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, right? And so it's not just about one person or one direction. It's about putting all of the data together. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of folks yesterday were a little irritated. Everybody loves Avi, but I think a few folks were irritated with this idea of, but we have so much data. Why are we going to ignore the data that we have? And I think he had some good responses for that. But I love the fact, Jane, that you're kind of reinvigorated and passionate about kind of the whole picture.
I'm sorry it depressed Rather, though, about the future, of are we going to be having the same documentary, again, about the Tic Tac UFO? So it's like, if Alex Dietrich or Commander Fravor, or I'm sorry, I'm having trouble remembering this latest witness that Jeremy...
Chad Underwood.
Yeah, Chad Underwood, right. If any of them saw a gray alien... in the little pilot window, I would like to hear about it now, and not 20 years from now.
Right.
I didn't get the impression he saw anybody in the pilot window, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Rather, any response to that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that these historical events are very interesting. This documentary series revigorated my interest as well, but I don't think that we're going to be able to definitively know anything about Roswell. Like, I think that boat probably sailed 50 years ago. And that's why I was depressed about this Tic Tac stuff. Like, I would hate to see that same thing happen to these modern cases. That would be really depressing for me.
Yeah, that would suck if in 20 years we're the ones yelling like Don Schmidt, but they said this and this and that, because he's pissed. Don Schmidt is always upset, and I understand where his frustration's coming from. I really, really do. If it wasn't for Don, none of these videos would have been available for this AI to go back on and do the algorithm on. So we got to give hats off to him on that front. He's talked to so many different witnesses and is really, as best he can, triangulated and tried to confirm through eyewitness testimony and documents as best he can about all of these events at Roswell. And the one thing that really stuck out to me about this whole series was rancher, was it Mike Brazel?
Mac
Brazel. The fact that they basically arrested him and put him in a cell for a few days, and in the middle of that period walked him to the radio station to basically change his story, and then he changes his story, then they walk him right back to his cell, and then 4 days later, they let him go, and he goes back to the ranch, and he doesn't say a word basically for the rest of his life.
Well, what I thought was the most interesting, I would like to get your take on this, Jade, is that the one lady that they said was lying in that whole ordeal was the one who said that he was bribed and was driving home with a new truck.
Yeah.
So how do we interpret that? Doesn't that just seem bizarre?
Bizarre, yeah.
Yeah, and also remember what happens to the reporter who Mac talks to. They put him in a mental institution later. So,
Right.
folks like you and me, well, we probably just, wouldn't have been making YouTube videos, well, for many reasons, back in 1947. But we know it sounds like Mac Brazel, found something odd, in the desert. He was harassed by, officials, and that's what we know. And so, is it possible? So I think that was Loretta Proctor, the other neighbor, the other townsperson who had, seen him, could she have been told to say that he was bribed? I mean, if we're to believe the other testimony that this was a cover-up, basically, then maybe there were more than one person involved in the cover-up, and Loretta could have, been that, for all we know. So there's a lot of mixed results, like, throughout the series that really, I think that's actually where we can connect some dots, is by seeing, not necessarily, well, obviously, if they're all telling the truth, we actually have a lot of contradiction, right? If everybody's telling the truth.
Right.
So it's probably worthwhile almost making just a chart of
Right.
the whole story, and seeing what we can redact based on the AI lie detector, at least.
I can just see Jane's wall now, like with the strings and the thumbnails and the thumbtacks and just like all the connections.
What was your favorite, I guess, moment of the show? Now that it's out, everyone's seen it. Who's your favorite witness, I guess?
Oh wow.
Jason McClellan's was Jesse Marcel.
It's hard. That seems like such a cheat. I mean, Frank Joyce. No, I mean, just because I want to say that too.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I feel like
Too easy
for me to say that because you just suggested it.
Right.
I mean, Frank Joyce is a big one just because it's like any reporter on the trail you kind of relate to, right? But the thing about Jesse Marcel is his grandson in 2016 in Alien Con. I went to a Roswell panel, and his grandson was speaking on it, and I was able to be part of a Q&A. And I guess this information had come out at this time, but I didn't realize. And so, he's talking about the hieroglyphs and the weird geometric symbols he's seen on the Roswell debris, or at least I brought it up in the Q&A. And I compared it to the symbols that were seen on the Rendlesham crash, in the UK, like in the 80s. And so he just, confirmed that there were like hieroglyphic, like, symbols seen. And there was actually some news coverage around that at the time. And anyways, he just seemed very genuine. And I just believed the grandson's story, at least. So yeah, I mean, that definitely did affect me, just because I think that's the only witness I've ever talked to firsthand regarding Roswell.
Right on. Real quick, we've got a $25 donation from Jazz Shaw, who says, thank you for the $25 dono, Jazz. Says, Jane, what month?
He means month, yeah.
What month do you think Michelle should plan the wedding for with Luis? And should it involve astronomical signs?
It should involve astronomical.
Oh, no.
Signs.
Oh, no.
I'm actually not an astrology or an astronomy expert, neither. So I can't advise you there. I know that I got married in December, and that was like a really magical time of year. So
I also got married in December.
Yeah, so why not December? So it's July now, August, September, October. You got 5 months.
5 months. All right.
I don't know if that $25 super chat's gonna cover it.
I'm gonna need about, like, Avi Loeb. I'm gonna need about 30, 40 times more than that, and I mean, to make that happen. But hey, that's a nice little chunk to almost get there.
Thank you, Jazz.
Appreciate it, Jazz. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's reset the room, and then we can get into the second half of this discussion about Roswell.
Fantastic. Well, for those of you just joining us, we are with UFO Jane right now, who is just on the brand new docu-series, right? I believe it's a docu-series, Roswell, The Final Verdict. For those of you who don't know UFO Jane, she is the creator of The Weird UFO Show, where she has documented thousands of UFO cases and has some great interviews over there as well. So make sure, if you have not already, follow UFO Jane at The Weird UFO Show. We've also got Rather Be Squidding right here with us. And if you haven't followed Rather Be Squidding, make sure you do that on YouTube as well. If you're looking for breaking science, breaking technology, do that today. If you haven't subscribed to the Unidentified Celebrity Review and you're here right now what are you doing? Click the button, click the subscribe button, click the bell. And make sure you follow us on Twitter because we're always launching new stuff. We're always we've got new merch rolling out all the time. So make sure you do that. Yeah. So what else? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, also I was going to say, who do you have tomorrow in the Singularity Lab, Michael?
I have Dr. Massimo Teodorani coming on tomorrow. We're actually going to be going live a little bit early. We're going to be going live at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. So for those of you in the UK, he's actually in Italy, and it's going to be an extraordinary. He's actually doing, or he did what Avi Loeb is doing here now in Norway. And he's got some pretty extraordinary experiences that he's going to be sharing with us tomorrow. So I'm super stoked for that. We also got Jazz Shaw coming on the panel after that to talk about his 4,000 word essay on the Dolphin Empire theory. So if you are not following the Singularity Lab, make sure you get over there. Real quick, all you got to do is click the link in the description, open up a new window, and click that subscribe and bell so you don't miss that tomorrow.
And by the way, the merch store that's going to be filled with Dolphin Empire stuff is going to be so good. We should have that store up by next week, from what I understand. The balls are rolling on that. We're also going to give you basically the finalized posters for the Big Phone Home 2. So we're going to probably reveal those at the top of the second hour. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, I also have another announcement.
What's that?
The Singularity Lab is now on Apple Podcast and Spotify.
Both shows are.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you've been on for a while. I just got mine up yesterday, but yes, UCR and the Singularity Lab finally caught up and is now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So super excited about that. Make sure you go subscribe, follow, leave a 5-star review, because if you want to help us reach more people, we can get this show out into the new and noteworthy section on Apple Podcasts. So please do that. We'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome, dude. Congratulations on the Spotify.
I had to drop a chunk of change, bro. I didn't have any time to do it. I had to pay an editor. I dropped the cash. I was like, you know what? Edit this shit. I can't. I don't have time. I can't.
Good for you. Good for you.
Got it done.
Well, that's awesome, man. And also, I see that there's 142 of you guys in here. Do me a favor, share. Let's see if we can get this show up to 200. That'd be great if we could get the 200 folks in here tonight. Okay, so let's continue with this conversation. UFO Jane Kyle. Do you think it's a mistake that this sort of modern science conversation is excluding these types of events like Roswell or Rendlesham Forest or the Nimitz encounter? What are your thoughts on that?
Mistake is a strong word, because mistake implies some kind of like almost intention around it. Maybe more an inevitable accident. I think we have to definitely take baby steps into it, and we don't have, and we have some deathbed confessions, and we're hearing from children and grandchildren at this point. When it comes to Roswell, there's probably some more recent cases. Maybe we could glean some things from, like Phoenix Lights, which was only in the 90s, even the Travis Walton abduction incident in the 70s, is a little bit more graspable. I think it's just, I just think it's been too long, and there's been too many cover stories for us to include it in the conversation. So it's kind of impossible to, but yeah, should it be included? Yes. Yeah. I don't know how though. Really, besides this, I guess, Yeah.
No, that's right. Thank you so much, Akashi Chris, for the $2.99 super sticker. Appreciate the donation, man. That is very, very kind of you. Let's see here. So I guess, now, would you? Here was the one thing I thought I had, was that, there's a couple of things. The first is that there's a lot of witnesses who got stories from the people who were there. And the thing that I've found a common thread through all of those types of situations is almost all of them were telling the truth. Every single one. And I was like, well, maybe you could get away with 1, 2, 3 of those. But it was like 5-6 witnesses in that vein where all of them were telling the truth about the story that they were told. Now, that doesn't mean that the story they were told was true, but again, going back to what I just said, like, the odds of all of those fake stories being truthfully retold are pretty low.
Well, not only that, but who doesn't embellish a good story? Like, everybody I know embellishes a story, and the fact that none of those folks were like called out for it, just even embellishment. But maybe the AI doesn't call out for embellishment. Maybe it only calls out for a lie.
Well, see, here's the thing. I think, and I don't know if you got to watch the whole thing, Michael, because there was a couple of witnesses where in one case they were telling the truth, and then in another case where it felt like they were embellishing the story. Like, someone said, like, you know, something along the, Jane, if you could correct me, there was a witness that said something along the lines, those damn aliens, or something like that. It was like very expletive. And the AI determined, no, that was a lie. But the previous statement leading up to that, he was telling the truth. So it's just when he got excited or he got angry that maybe he was just getting upset that he still doesn't know the answer to what he saw. But it was interesting because there was, I think, 2 different times that happened. So I guess what are your thoughts on everything we just said, Jane?
Yeah. No, I think you're talking about, I know there was the case maybe when one of the witnesses who was a child at the time, or somebody who had recalled seeing bodies, but then also saw maybe a living body or a moving body. And I think that part of it where it got a little maybe more sci-fi-y, you know, triggered the AI detector. So I think, I mean, look, there would be different reasons. I presume it would detect any kind of dishonesty, but I would be curious to learn more. I didn't get to see the AI detector or anything in action. But, you know, obviously you're just lying to make up a story, which that seems, honestly, that kind of seems suspect, especially when you know within a day, everybody knew the government was lying about it, right? Because it was a weather balloon. You know, they thought there was discs and there was a weather balloon. So it seems like it's probably not worth your while to just make up a story and lie to like policemen and sheriff and members of the military. Again, right after World War II, Nick Pope was pointing out it was like very kind of patriotic at this time.
Well, that's what Mac Brazel was kind of saying. It's the reason why first he went to the bar, then he went to the radio station, then he called the Air Force. But it was like a sense of duty. Like, you know, I think he was going into town because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like at least an hour and a half drive from the ranch to Roswell, New Mexico, maybe even longer. Like, it is where these 2 crash sites are really, really far from Roswell, New Mexico. So it could be, you know, he was just going into town, catching up with friends and getting advice from friends on what to do. And then that led to him going to the radio station. Then the radio station contacted the Air Force, and then boom, this whole thing happened. But did these people receive money, fame? You know, was it in their best interest to make up a story? I think now time definitely tells us that wasn't the case. And then other reasons for lying would be that you signed an NDA. And so you promised that if you were going to speak about this, there's certain specific details you would need to embellish or tell in a different way, right? So that could be a reason. You could just be personally wanting to protect, you know, somebody's identity or some information that you knew. That would be another reason you might lie. Or also, again, maybe hard to believe someone who just completely fabricate a story, but it's not super hard to believe that some witnesses, like maybe, you know, remembering being a kid and seeing an alien body, maybe you might embellish it a little bit.
or just false memory. I mean, that can happen as well. I think, I mean, the only thing, because you guys mentioned specifically this idea of patriotism, and you know, we were in, it's right after World War II, or it's right after or during
1947.
Yeah, right.
It was about wrapping up. We were in the Cold War. We were just getting into the Cold War.
Right. We were just getting into the Cold War, and we were concerned about the Soviet Union developing nuclear technology, and we were trying to make sure that they weren't testing nuclear weapons. And so I think even Dan Brown writes about this in one of his more recent books, and he says, well, you know, we had, and again, Dan is a fiction author, But he's saying,
is that Da Vinci Code?
yeah, same guy.
Yeah, I love his books.
Fiction author.
Yeah,
but one of the things he embellishes about is that this was it wasn't a weather balloon. It was a spy balloon that was in a certain point in the atmosphere trying to listen in to into the Soviet Union, and it crashed. And then the media jumped on this alien thing, and the military is like, "Phew, that's a good one. Let's go with that." And they kind of just embellished that and played along with that. And so you could see, like, if people were being patriotic and they were being told, "Hey, go with the alien story because that gives us the ability to cover," that could be a patriotic thing to do. No.
Well, the thing that I always have issue with this story is that Jesse Marcel got promoted like multiple times. You know, I just think let's just say for a second that it was an actual alien crash, and that's what he led with, and then they retracted it. That is a huge screw up. Right? Because obviously they didn't want that information out to a point where they put people in holding cells for days, like to get them to change the story. They came back and they redacted the story and gave a new story. They forced Jesse Marcel in public. They embarrassed this guy's intelligence and his credentials in front of the world, and then he gets promoted after it. So it's. I just figured I don't know, and I could be wrong about this, with a screw up that big, that he would have been stationed, you know, at some tower in Alaska or something. You know, because you always hear that in the movies, right?
Siberia.
Well, on the other hand, though, that's him being a team player. He took one for the team, and you would expect to get kind of congratulated by doing something
on the
like
back
that.
end. Yeah,
maybe that's the story they wanted to put out at first because they knew exactly what that weather balloon was capable of and what it was doing. So they put this story out quickly first, and that was just the quick thinking of Jesse Marcel. Because as soon as the rancher said, "Oh, I think it could be alien," that's brilliant. Let's go with that. And then they put out the press release, right? And then he takes his family pieces of this weird-looking weather balloon. I know this sounds crazy. I mean, but it doesn't sound crazier than an alien craft. I mean, honestly, just slow down and think about this.
Right.
He takes it to his son, who has no clue what he's looking at. Right. He gets this story. The story gets passed down, and I think the guilt comes more from having to lie to his wife, his kid, his family, and then those people telling his lies all the way throughout when he was old. But then we get this lie detector test that reads his story, you know, and it's like, no. You know, and he said it point blank. This craft was from another world. It was alien without a doubt, and there were bodies, the whole nine. And the AI says, "Yep, this dude's telling the truth." You know, so that's where I'm like, okay, now this hypothesis of mine, it just got thrown right into the grinder. Like, it's hard, dude. But I can see how telling that story and propagating that lie, especially to your loved ones, would be a very guilty thing to carry. But it also, I see it as, hey, that's a great way to get promoted too. This guy thought quickly on his feet. He put out a story that went worldwide. Then we retracted it, gave it a little bit more of a mundane story because people were actually getting concerned. Because this is like right after World of Worlds kind of, you know, shows, and people freaking out, thinking that aliens are real, and you know they wanted to just quell the craziness. So then they said, okay, no, it's just a weather balloon. Here's the guy who found it. Him holding it up, they take the pictures, they do the press release, and boom, cover story. For forever. Now you can use that line to cover any secret tech that you want forever. And so that's kind of, and it's hard to really pinpoint because it happened in 1947. It's 70 years now, I think, almost. And so it's just really, really difficult. It's like trying to grasp smoke. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that's why Avi Loeb doesn't want to go back there, right? He doesn't want to deal with the amount of baggage that comes along with all of these different pieces of the puzzle. Is it data? Yes, it absolutely is. And should we be interested in it? And, you know, and creating the thumbtacks and the strings on Jane's wall? Yes, we absolutely should. But Avi Loeb's job is not that. Avi Loeb's job is to let's go see what we can find now. Right. Let's look at what we can uncover now and put that data together. So it's really interesting. But this whole idea of and again, the U.S. if they were covering it up, if it wasn't aliens and they were covering something up, they weren't covering up a weather balloon. Weather balloon was the cover story. It would have been something having to do with the Soviets, right?
Yeah.
That's what it would have been if it was.
Right.
Rather, I see Rather.
I was gonna say before Rather says anything, Pete McCarthy from Creepy Little Book. By the way, Tina, please put his link in the description because I love this man. He says, we got to take Pete's word here. They found bodies. They covered it up. Like that's a statement from Pete. And look, here's the thing, dude. Let's just give the sort of reasonable doubt, or the what's the word I'm looking for? Let's give the college, the professor who developed this AI, a little room here to say, okay, maybe this AI is actually pretty good.
We got to find this guy for the show. By the way,
God, I'm dying to talk to this guy, and I've reached out to him. Let's just say it is. Let's say the return is 95% accurate, and Jesse Marcel is telling the truth. And these witnesses hearing about bodies, multiple witnesses hearing about bodies, Creepy Pete telling us they found bodies. If that is true, dude, it's insane. It's insane. Rather, I know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Jesse Marcel seemed to be the most credible person in my opinion. I don't think that he ever said that there were bodies. There were a lot of other people who have said that it was true that corroborate the body stories, but not Jesse Marcel. And I want to say just the one thing that really, really frustrated me, and like almost the unforgivable sin of this series, was at the very end when they had the government official in 1993 talk about Project Mogul, the new secret military balloon, and they didn't run the AI on him.
Oh, good point.
Come on, run that AI.
Run the AI on the government official giving the press brief.
And what makes that even more bizarre is that they not only explained away the debris as balloon stuff, they made up this thing about putting up dummies, test dummies to test something, and they needed to explain away the body stuff too. They felt the need to do that, and that really fell flat to me. And I think that the AI would have said that that's a complete lie.
Man, that's a great.
You want to do some balloon stuff?
Yeah. Dude, that's a great point. That's a great point, because you're right. When it comes to the dummies that they pointed out in that report didn't exist in 1947. They didn't exist. So that
they could have easily just not mentioned the bodies and said, "Oh, these people aren't credible."
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so also, here's the thing I would have loved to see, and then I got to step out for a second because I got to help the lady do something. But the thing that I would like to see is what's more entertaining, Jane? Taking this AI and making a whole bunch of UFO believers, right, and researchers look crazy and silly by proving that all of these people were like what's more entertaining, having all of these people say come back as false liars, or having them come back as true like it did? Because I mean, I think I would want to see this AI plastered on another story, whether it be Rendlesham, whether it be the case in Pennsylvania, or the
we need a control group. We need a control group with the AI. That's what we don't have. And we talk about science in the show all the time. And if we want to know how accurate the AI is, we need a control group. And that's why I don't understand these shows. It's like you could literally drive traffic to your website and be like, go check out this extra footage and this extra, they do that on Bravo all the time, on Top Chef. They've got a whole nother show that they do after. It's like, you guys are blowing this huge opportunity to drive all this traffic to your site. Just give us more.
Yeah. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of those things, including the sentiments that AI could be BS. Because even like the traditional lie detector tests, I know can they be used, in the court of law? Apparently, that's the thing they always say, they can't be used in the court of law. And there's body language experts on YouTube that are really fun to watch, but it's also sometimes silly, how much they deduce, from like single interviews and stuff. So I get that. But I think like even if you didn't have the AI detector in there and it was just we were just going witness testimony to witness testimony, just taking it for what it is, like I think that's probably why the series worked, at least for me, because it was just like, there were certain details I hadn't learned of before researching for this show. And I guess what I will say though, if people want kind of like especially while Luis is out, some things that were not in the documentary that I think that I really wanted to like be able to share, that people might be interested to hear. So there's another witness testimony. You can find it on YouTube. So the reporter's name is Noe Torres. Done a bunch of different interviews, I think, over the years. Not sure how credible, but interviewing Robert Porter, who was a Roswell flight crew member. And so a little chunk of the Roswell final verdict, they talk about how the debris was flown from Roswell to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Well, according to Robert Porter, who was part of the flight crew, he actually handled some of the debris, and there was a triangle-shaped package, a few shoebox-sized packages. It was all really lightweight. And he helped to transport it first to a base in Fort Worth, Texas, before it went on to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So I really wanted to hear, that testimony through the AI. But I think that just goes to show how many, the big myth is like, well, if UFOs and aliens are real, then how is the government keeping it all secret? It's like, well, they're not. Look, we have 15 plus, secondhand testimony, that this, series brought forward from, just folks living out in the New Mexico desert that have nothing to gain, by lying. So they didn't, keep the secret. Mm-hmm. So there's the Robert Porter, and then the other piece that I really wanted to share, but didn't get a chance to, in Roswell Final Verdict on Discovery Channel, which you can get a 7-day free trial.
Discovery Plus, Discovery Plus.
Discovery Plus, yes, not on the channel, the app. So they mentioned the flying saucer wave, that was going on. And so, yeah, people were feeling patriotic. People were thinking about like sci-fi things and aliens, believe it or not, even way back then. But that's for a reason, because flying saucers were being seen. So like in the 1950s and 60s in Texas, I've gotten witness reports of people who remember like sitting outside their patio or hearing from other family members who would do this and would see flying saucers. And there was one person who actually worked at the then Air Force Base in Waco. It's no longer a base, and saw saucers in a V-shaped formation. And they talked about how there was a tower there at the time that was meant to record these flying saucers. And I was able to later find, in an old Waco Tribune article, local Texas newspaper, that indeed there were these flying saucer detecting watchtowers, that we had installed. So the flying saucer UAP phenomenon, the MIB or whoever these folks are, were well aware of these craft. And, who knows, think about, what we're seeing right now in 2021 and what the tech could have looked like to us back then in 1947, how scary that might have been to us. Right. Yeah, before we'd even gone to the moon, right?
I wanted to address one of your other points, and you mentioned that, what do people have to gain? And you're right. They don't have a lot to gain at all. And then you also mentioned that, how has the government been able to hide this? And they haven't. But even though the government can't hide this stuff, they can still make people look nuts. And that is enough for the government not to sweat it, right? As long as the majority of the population thinks the minority is nuts, they have nothing to worry about.
Oh, 100%. And you'll actually see with the more well-documented cases, especially those that we really kind of can't debunk anymore, you'll see there's always an effort to say that it's a hoax. You know, first you try to cover it up, I guess, then you try to explain it, then you say it's a hoax. You know, the mayor in Phoenix said that he was, he had to make a joke out of it, had to make light of it. You know, Project Blue Book, again, that started up, I think, right after Roswell project, which was preceded by Project Sign and Grudge. And the founder of Project Blue Book, which was, today's UAP report, I guess, or the past, equivalent of that. Excuse me, should have muted my mic there. But J. Allen Hynek is considered the father of ufology, and he said that we had a job to do, which was to not excite the public. And if you go back even farther, President Truman has at least one, maybe two quotes where he talks about flying saucers being something that was going on, and he's the one that got the CIA started, and the original director of the CIA also, has a quote about UFOs and how people have been made to believe that this is not real. So this cover up, are aliens real? Are they visiting? I don't know. I don't know that this docu-series, proved it one way or the other, but the cover up, we can't deny that anymore. And so that, I think that is relevant, to conversations Avi Loeb and Jeremy Corbell, are all having, today, because we do know that there's so much history to this cover up. And so there's definitely going to be a legacy from it that we're going to have to learn from and fight against, I think.
That's a really nice, I think that's a really nice way to close the Roswell, the final verdict. That was awesome, Jane. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and telling us sort of the behind the scenes on what happened with the show. And I think, look, before the show, I was 49% this is a government cover-up to hide Russian spy tech, and now I'm like 55% on the other side going, you're right, there's a cover-up. There's definitely a cover-up. There's no doubt about that. Now, whether or not how true that cover-up is on both sides of that spectrum, it's really, really hard to tell. But after this show, it's got me leaning back.
So you're
the other
55
way.
aliens, 45 Russian spy balloon.
I don't want to say aliens. I'm 55% because what if they're AI? What if they're like von Neumann?
Are you talking about extraterrestrial AI?
I suppose. But look, I just don't want to put the label on there. I'm just going to say it's not made of this earth.
Okay.
How about that?
Got it.
All right.
Or extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, interdimensional, all
of those
in
things.
one bucket.
Correct.
You're 55 to 45
non-human.
Russian spy balloon.
Correct. Phenomenon. Okay. So that's what I'm leaning. Yes. Because
Jack Ryan might have an interesting point here.
I'm for a Russian pie saloon. That sounds wonderful.
Jack Ryan makes me laugh.
He is funny. Yeah, he is funny. I'm curious to know though what kind of pies Russians make.
In their saloons.
I have a feeling there's no apple pies over there. But anyway, okay. So we're at the top of the hour. So real quick, let's. We've got Artemis Prime in the back. In our studio, we've got Manny Miranda ready to come on as well. We're going to be talking about Mick West versus Chris Lito a little bit. We're also going to be discussing Jeremy Corbell's new interview with Chad Underwood, which is the first time he's ever been on video. So that was a very a fun conversation. And we got a $1.49 super sticker from Schoolcraft. Thank you so much. Hello, UFO Alien Girl 111. One of my faves. So let's do this because I wanted to. There's a couple things I want to do. I don't see Artemis. Are you ready back there? I don't see your camera. As soon as she's got a camera up, we'll bring her in. But let's go ahead and bring in our next guest, Michael.
Absolutely. For those of you who don't know, we are being joined today by Manny Miranda. He is an Army veteran and podcast host. He covers everything from current events and history to UAP and the occult. He has had his own personal experience. Welcome, Manny. How are you today?
How's it going? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we hear you really nicely.
Make sure the audios are good. Yeah, it's good, man. I was listening to that in there. That's every time I hear people talk about stuff, it's like there's certain things that hit on that I wish Lou Elizondo was like in the room next to me, and I'd go, "Hey, you gotta fucking break this one down." You know, I feel like it's almost like when you're in the room with people debating about like LeBron and Jordan, and you have that one uncle who's always like he knows every stat from like 1997, and someone's just like, "I don't know if LeBron's better," and you're like, "Theo, I need you to get this guy." Like that's how I feel almost every time. Like you guys dropped some bombs. I was pretty impressed with like
it's all Jane.
The historical side. That's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you guys we were covering the end of it, the history of Project Blue Book, and the goal being from the beginning to not cause civil unrest. It's something that I've talked about a lot in the sense that you have to think of the world of 1947 to the 60s, you know, and even into the late 80s. There was a constant panic that we were about to be in another world war. You know, when you have that in the background, and you have, you know, like I know this podcast isn't for talking about like religion and politics, but in the historical context of this, it was a much more conservative country. So you have to imagine a much more religious focused country. Mm-hmm. Imagine coming forward and saying anything, you know, even if it's just the simplest, you know, hey, we may have non-human intelligence on the planet. That's not a pill that even to this day is easy for most people to swallow, I don't think. And if those 3 videos hadn't come out, I don't think we'd see the community that we have today.
I completely agree. And when you think about, you know, what Elizondo even dealt with in the Pentagon, I mean, you have high-level Pentagon officials who are saying we don't look at UFOs. We avoid the topic completely because of the potential for them to be demonic. The religious, context of this conversation in this country is huge, and to underplay it, you know, in 1947 is a huge mistake. That the context is important there. I completely agree, Manny.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think I tweeted about this, but I haven't covered it in my podcast yet. Again, for people that have served, when it came out that Lou Elizondo put forward this IG complaint, that was a big deal. I think we might have touched it a little bit last time I was here, but you know, if you're not familiar with what an Inspector General complaint is in the military. Yes, a lot of people can lobby them for whatever, but for someone that's higher up, you know, I understand Lou Elizondo was not like the head of national security, but he was at the top of a very important, very secret program. For him to put in an IG complaint that said that not only was there essentially reprisal and pretty much people covering up what he's doing and punishing him for doing his job, but that he even said, allegedly in this Inspector General complaint, that there was a conspiracy within the community above him to not let his information get out. That is a huge deal. Like that is literally a paper trail to the cover up at the highest levels, even in the program that's supposed to be uncovering the truth. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's wild when you really think about it in that context, that even in the Pentagon, there's people that are going, hey, we've hired you to specifically look at UFOs. But there's people above you that have rank that come from this old guard that still have this stigma. And I can tell you that stigma is still in place today.
Yeah, well, no, that's obvious. But I'm glad that we've got conversations now with Chad Underwood, Alex Dietrich, David Fravor to help kill that stigma. And that stigma is crumbling every day because of conversations like this and because of events that we're going to tell you about here in a second. But before we do, let's bring on. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to suggest to her that she changes all of her handles to Artemis Prime. Because I think that's such a killer handle name. Seriously, you should consider it, Artemis.
I'm worried somebody's going to go grab it. So
unidentified celebrity review audience. This is our intern, our lady behind the scenes who helps us do a lot of things. Artemis Prime, welcome to your debut. How are you doing? Doing good. Your mic's a little low.
Is it? Is that better?
Oh, there we go.
Better. Way better. Okay, good. Okay, so Artemis, we're bringing you on today for your debut because we want to know what are the poll results for today's poll.
Ooh, the poll result.
Well, first of all, tell us what the poll was, and then give us the results.
Yeah. So the poll was, what did you think of the Jeremy Corbell high noon drop? And 38% said amazing. 20% said subpar. And 42% said who cares? More data is more data.
Hey.
All right. That's kind of what we want. All right, so let's go real quick through our panel. Michael, what do you think?
More data is more data, baby.
That's
it.
what you would vote? Okay,
More
Jane?
data is more data.
I think I'm in the more data or data.
Data.
Or data.
Data.
Okay.
Data.
Data.
Data, data.
I misheard it wrong, but yeah.
Okay, rather? Well,
muted.
yeah,
rather.
muted rather. That was a great take, though. I can see it on your
More
face.
data. More data.
More data is more data. All right, Manny?
I'm halfway between the more data and the bombshell, just because there's a little key hidden in there. Like, I think I messaged you about it, that if you paid attention to what he said, specifically with when he talked about where he went to discuss what he saw, I think if people followed that trail, and again, this is an officer, right? The difference between military officers and enlisted is that officers typically have college degrees, but the way that they're trained is to essentially be the presenters of what the people on the ground are actually doing, which is why you almost always see officers on TV and not enlisted, right? You don't see guys like me because we don't have like that polish where we can talk like newscasters, right? He's very slick. This guy is incredibly smart when he discussed specifically the Civic on board the ship. And I want people to really, if you go back and listen to it, listen to what he talked about when he went to the Civic, right? Because essentially what he's saying is anytime someone comes back with UAP data, they're going to where? They're not going to their commanding officer first, right? They're telling them what they saw, and then they move immediately to intel. That is the path to disclosure. That was the key that he dropped today. That if you're paying attention, that was the secret little kind of hidden bombshell. And the Civics are not a hidden thing, but the fact that you have an officer coming forward, the guy who recorded the Tic Tac, saying, I went to the Civic, I gave them all the data. Like, if you want any data,
if you
they're
can,
the ones that
real
move it
quick,
forward.
Explain what a Civic is and why that's important.
Well, I'm not a Navy guy, but I kind of understand the gist of it, right? So it's kind of like in the same circles that I run in, right? So essentially, this is the place where they drop any sort of intel they gather, and then from there, it gets disseminated outward to other members of the intel community. So you have to understand this is a
server.
It's essentially like a server. It's almost like a handoff point, right? There's a lot of things that the Navy can gather intel on, that fighter pilots can gather intel on, that other people in the intelligence community can use, but it has to go through kind of that filtering point first so that they can make it understandable to other members of the intel community. The purpose of the Civic is to be that node in that network. And when he said that and he talked about it, number one, I didn't know you were allowed to talk about that. So I literally had to look it up afterward. And I was like, oh, this motherfucker's smart. Like, he knows he can say that. And he specifically pointed out, like, hey, I dropped it here. And he's talked about it before. That's a key to going forward. There's a reason that, the Senate Intel Committee was briefed on the UAP report. There's a reason that it all connects back to that community, because that's where the next steps are.
Do you think this information then can be found in the Civic? Is that sort of what you're alluding to?
Well, it had to have been passed on to someone, right? Intel's no good if it sits in one spot. And there is absolutely a history of different members within the Intel community withholding information from each other. Famously, that's what people claimed led to 9/11. You had CIA having information. You had FBI having information. They were not sharing because they both wanted to get notoriety for, essentially solving the puzzle, putting the pieces together.
And also just the information sharing is terrible on
you see the
in
same
all
thing.
departments. All
Yeah,
departments.
you see the same thing between the CIA and the FBI, right? It's like
absolutely.
Once they get data and they want to be the ones to solve it. Right. And so what Manny's alluding to is that the Navy doesn't want to give up this information. They're holding it and keeping it back because they want to be the ones to figure it out, when in fact the smartest thing to do, if you could put your ego aside for 5 effing minutes, is to share the data.
I would tell you right now, from personal experience, the amount of ego that goes into not sharing information between any group within the DoD is staggering. I will say that is pretty shocking. Honestly, that was one of the biggest shocks to me about the UAPTF becoming public. The fact that they said, we're actually going to make a serious effort to start to compile information from different branches. Now,
Right.
has it hit the level where it needs to be? Absolutely not.
No.
But the fact that they've even said, hey,
Right.
let's reach out to the Navy. Let's reach out to these fighter pilots. Let's reach out to these radar guys. Let's start going to these, ground units. What are they seeing? What are these UAV guys seeing? The fact that conversation is even happening is revolutionary. I think a lot of people that have never been in the military don't understand how revolutionary it is that information is being shared at all, like at the level that they're trying to get it to. But it is a positive thing. I would just say public pressure needs to continue. Like if people really want this to go forward, it has to be through stuff like this podcast. It has to be the things that UFO Twitter.
Pretty good segue, Manny.
It was not planned.
Segue. But real quick, Artemis Prime. What do you think? On the poll, what's your choice? Amazing, subpar, or more data is more data?
More data is more data. I think that Manny's right. Like I think we've come so far in the fact that we're even having these conversations, especially in mainstream media. I think we have to look at the bigger picture. And I think, it's not going to happen overnight. I know we want it to, but we have to be patient. There's so much going on out there that, that's only just being brought to light, that I think we just have so much more to look forward to. Yeah, it's just the beginning.
Awesome. All right, Artemis Prime. Well, I think you stuck the landing on your premiere.
Sweet.
Yeah, did pretty good.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we're gonna make this.
Label.
Yeah, we're gonna make this a regular thing. We'll have you come back and give us our poll results all the time. So that'll be fun.
Sounds good.
All right, Artemis Prime. We'll see you later.
Okay. Bye.
Ciao.
Thanks, Artemis Prime. Dude, such a good idea on the handle.
Dude, it's the best handle idea in the world. You better go and do it right now because someone's going to take
Someone's going to do it.
Okay, so real quick, just to segue into what Manny was just discussing, activism, right? So this is officially the poster for day 1 or day 2, we haven't decided yet, of the Big Phone Home. As you can see, we've got a couple of names already. These are the folks that have committed. We've got, and Manny, by the way, you can join us on day 3. We've already announced the dates on Michael's show yesterday. So if you want to know the dates of the Big Phone Home, you got to find it in a 2-hour show that Michael did yesterday with Avi Loeb. We did ask Avi Loeb to join the Big Phone Home. So we've got Avi Loeb, and we're also going to have members of the Galileo Project joining us during a science day. We're going to be doing, I'll just go ahead and tell you, it's going to be Labor Day weekend. I believe it's September. It's actually on the poster. Let's look at it. September 4th, 5th, and 6th. We're going to be doing it Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And so Saturday is going to be podcasters, enthusiasts, radio show hosts, filmmakers, people, like anybody on this panel right now who's got a show, folks that have a voice in the community. We're going to invite them to come join the show on Saturday. We're going to be doing an 8-hour live stream. We're also going to be having Sean Raish doing phone calls and checking in the show all the time. So that'll be very cool.
That's
so we'll
dope.
definitely have people actually helping us with the activism as we do the live streams. And then on Saturday, we've got, this is the poster. I'm kind of digging this poster more, Michael. I think I might take this for Friday, your day's Sunday. I'm going to take this poster
Sunday.
for Saturday. Okay, so on Sunday, we're going to be doing another 8-hour live stream, same exact thing on the Singularity Lab, and it's going to be science-centric. So we're going to be having, again, Avi Loeb, the Galileo Project. We're going to be reaching out to Rich Hoffman and the scientists over at the SCU. So the whole day is going to be dedicated to scientific discussions around the UAP topic. It's going to be a killer day on the Singularity Lab. And then on Monday, we wrap it up back at the Unidentified Celebrity Review for a military day. Trying to get as many military experts that have had eyewitness accounts on the show so we can try and kill stigma. So obviously we've got Lou Elizondo. Manny, this is our official request for you to join us on this day because I think your voice is important. You've also got.
I'll definitely be there. I'll definitely be there.
Excellent. So I'm not even going to go any farther. But real quick, just to give you guys a couple of names that have confirmed so far, we've got Lou Elizondo, John Greenwald, Sean Raish, Jason McClellan, Terrace Matla, James Ian Doley, Zach Seichi, Jane Kyle, obviously she's here all the time, Jazz Shaw, Christina Gomez, Jamarl Thomas, Carl Vibe, Graham Rendell, Dan Zetterstrom, better known as The Signal, Erica Lukes, Rich Hoffman, Daniel Miller, and Aaron DeSardo and Carl Vibe, I think, got on there twice. So, or no, did Aaron DeSario? No, Aaron DeSario did not get on there twice. So Aaron DeSario and Carl Vibe made it on the poster twice. So we just got to fix that. Congratulations, Carl. You get to be on there 2 days. But dude, here's another thing that I just wanted to point out, you guys. Our website is being worked on right now, and the gentleman making the website is Ben Jenkins over at the UFO Garage Podcast. His website creation company is called Neo Creative. So the entire website is going to be sponsored by Neo Creative. The show is going to be sponsored by Neo Creative. So they have a big hand in helping us wrangle these 3 days. Again, this is going to be 3 days, 24 hours worth of UAP, UFO talk from military members, scientific members. We're going to be requesting and encouraging people and giving them the tools, the tool belt to contact their representatives, demand congressional hearings, demand more discussion, demand more transparency, demand more scientific grants to study the phenomena of UAP. I mean, it's time. It's time. So based on that, of course, the show is going to be hosted by me, Michael Mataluni, and of course, Rather Be Squidding. And then the executive producer of the show is Alex Garcia, who's helped us sort of put a nice little wrapping paper on this entire event. So you guys, I'm going to be tweeting out these posters at the end of the show, so definitely look forward to that. And we're going to be selling these posters. The names will be added to the poster. If there's ways that you could join us in the effort, we'll be able to add your name to the poster just like last time. And we're going to be selling these posters on the merch store once the merch store is open. So I hope you guys are excited. I hope this gets you pumped. Just share the hell out of this. This is going to be a really good time, and I cannot wait to see. Yeah,
and I wanted to remind people.
What do you got?
As we are tweeting these things out and as you guys are inviting people and sharing this show, make sure that you are hashtagging the Big Phone Home 2. So we're going to be hashtagging the Big Phone Home 2 starting today through the Big Phone Home so we can get it trending and we can get as many people here as possible. So for those of you who joined the Big Phone Home last time, if you didn't know, the reason that we got so many amazing people beyond who the early commitments we got was because it was trending. We got Jimmy Church, we got Richard Dolan, we got all these other big names because it was trending. And now obviously we have already connected with some of these folks, but we're trying to get bigger names. We're trying to get Marco Rubio. We're trying to get folks in the government. We're trying to get senators. We're trying to get congressmen. We're trying to get people to care about this topic because we want to see these hearings in Congress. And people say, well, why do you want hearings? What do you care about hearings for? Hearings don't do nothing. Hearings are a process to get things cement this into the mind of the public. Whether or not you see specific results come out of these hearings, you're going to see it cemented in the mind of the public. And this takes us one step further toward UAP disclosure. That's all I got.
Well, thank you real quick to Ben for the $5 donation. Says, keep up the great work, UCR team. Love the content. Thank you so much, Ben. And then I'm just going to answer this comment real quick. And then I'm gotta go help my girlfriend, and then I'll let you take over real quick for a couple minutes, Mikey. And we're gonna be talking about the topic will be Mick West, because I know Manny's got some things to say about Mick West, and then we'll go into the conversation with Jeremy Corbell and Chad Underwood. But I wanted to address this real quick. Bricktop, who I love, by the way, he's a Patreon subscriber. So this is an amazing comment, and I'll tell you why. I don't care that Jimmy Church, in your opinion, is what you say he is here. If Jimmy Church is willing to bring his fan base and his followers to a common ground that we can all come to a table, a neutral table that we could all come to, discuss transparency, demand congressional hearings, demand more transparency and more discussion on the topic of UAP scientifically, and get some actual witness testimony in front of the world from some of the most credible people, the top 1% of the 1% of what these people do, nobody else can do. And so whether or not I agree with this statement, I am not going to go there, but I will say I don't care. I don't care. This is the time for all of us to find the common ground. And the common ground is we know the government has more information, so let's get together in one voice and demand some more out of it. And if we could put our differences aside for 24 hours and 3 days, I think that'll be good for everyone. Because again, like the poll said, more data is more data is more data. So just keep that in mind, Bricktop. I still love you. I hope that didn't insult you, because I know some folks, sometimes they get a little, oh no, he says, hey, fair enough. I hear that. It's just an opinion. But his digging into Travis recently was sus. I'm assuming Travis Walton. I haven't heard that interview yet. But Michael, what I'm going to do is I'm going to step out of here. I'm going to let you take over. And I'll be right back.
I have no idea. I don't know that piece of information, but I do want to get back to this interview and this drop today, and kind of share what one thing that I learned. So Manny, you mentioned what was the big thing that was exciting for you. One of the things that I didn't know was that if somebody who is a pilot in the Navy or somebody observes a black project, observes a black op, or some sort of piece of equipment related with a black project, if they see that and then come back and report it, they are then introduced to somebody within the military who is knowledgeable about that, and they'll explain what that is, and then they'll make them sign an NDA. And so the fact that this person didn't have to sign an NDA was really interesting to me. And sure, you can definitely still say, well, you still don't know. But to me, that was a big aha moment for me. What are your thoughts, Manny?
Yeah, I'll expand on that for a second. So, again, I have to it's kind of like with Lou, same thing. We're kind of the same boat where we have to be careful. So what I'll say is the thing that was even more interesting about that is the fact that nobody came on to even ask him what he saw for any other program. So essentially what that tells you is that at that time, this sort of craft was essentially so far off of everyone's radar that the maneuvers this thing could do, or the shape of it, or its capabilities, whether it was EW, electronic warfare jamming, which he talked about in the interview, all those capabilities combined, there was not a program for them to reach out to. Now, that does not mean that one didn't exist. So that him saying that does not mean that some ATIP sort of program did not exist. This is the more telling part, right? What it means is that whether one existed or not was so unknown to the people on board that ship and within that Civic, within that Intel Center, that nobody came to even debrief him on what he saw. Even if he had no clue what he saw, even if, it was some sort of exotic craft that maybe no one knew existed on the ship, someone should have been debriefed on what he saw besides just the people within that Intel Center. And after they, essentially got the info, someone should have pulled him back in, essentially talked to him afterward and been like, okay, well, just give us the report. The fact that none of that happened is more indicative of a cover-up than it is the fact that no program exists. Because let's go through this kind of thought example, right? Or this thought experiment. If you are a jet pilot, very experienced, which he was in 2004, and he sees a craft that is very unusual, you would think that the people within the intel community would immediately go, holy shit, have we been leapfrogged by the Chinese, Russians, or Iranians, or anybody else? We have to get to the bottom of this. The fact that it was essentially just like a description and let's just pass it on, to me, again, is more indicative of the fact that people are trying to essentially agree that things are being seen, but not let it become public that things are being seen. Because it would simply be something that everyone has to know if it was something that nobody knew about at all. If it was something nobody was covering, that would be red alert everywhere. That's the scary part to me about that interview today. And that was like one of the, again, when it came to that his interaction with the Civic, that was a huge red flag for me, that nobody came and talked to him. Was way more indicative that everyone was like, okay, we've seen this before. Everybody just shut the fuck up. And I've seen that personally. I've literally seen it personally where people are just like, okay, that's cool. Okay. Kind of like the head nod around the room. Like, okay, we're going to, everybody just pretend this didn't happen and move on. You know, I've seen it with my own eyes. So that was like one of those things that when he said it, he kind of hinted at it, and I immediately picked it up. And I'm sure there's a lot of veterans that saw that and kind of immediately knew the hustle. They kind of knew the game that was going on immediately.
I just popped in, so I have a feeling I know what he was talking about, but did anybody have any thoughts on what he just said?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's fascinating because, you know, I'm still trying to catch up here when it comes to what the protocol is within the military. But I do want to ask you, you know, kind of based on what he said about the, you know, the imaging that he took on the FLIR. He was saying that, you know, there was no there was no heat signature, there was no trail of any combustion of any sort. And then he was also saying that when the Tic Tac moved out of camera view, he was not making a turn. He was not moving. That absolutely moved out of his radar. Can you tell me what, you know, compare that to what the, you know, Mick West and Leto, you know, talked about the other day about this this video. Can you kind of give us a breakdown of what your thoughts are specifically about the video, Manny?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much, you know, I understand both their perspectives, right? Because again, the general public really only has like grainy IR footage, grainy FLIR footage to go on, right? The general public has not seen what other people have seen as far as data, and they're not personal witnesses to seeing these sorts of things. So again, it becomes, it's almost like you're looking at this world through a keyhole, whereas a lot of us have kind of seen the room, and maybe we haven't seen the whole house. Right. You know, I would agree that there's a lot of compartmentalization. I definitely have not seen the whole house and definitely not the whole neighborhood, but I've certainly seen more than the keyhole that's been let out to the public. And I'll tell you that a lot of times, the way that a lot of these, especially military systems, work, they don't work as intuitively as you think. So one of the examples that Mick West really keyed in on was like when it was locking. And again, I'm not an avionics guy. I don't work on those systems. But I've known some people that were aviators and transitioned into different fields, I'll say that. And so when you had those bars move off of the lock, people thought that essentially what that was it was losing lock, and then things are moving around on one of the videos, right? And essentially what he clarified, and again, this is something that really only fighter jet pilots or people that are mechanics or people that specify on like avionics, which is like the electrical equipment on jets, can talk to, is the idea that when those bars are moving, it's a signal to the pilot that the machinery, I don't want to give away too much essentially, but essentially the electronics and the software that is helping it stay locked is beginning to lose confidence. And anyone that's worked in programming, worked on any sort of tools knows what I'm talking about when I say that. And it's essentially that there's a range of confidence that these things can have that are kind of guaranteed. And once it goes outside of that tiny window, it's got to alert these people, because these people are flying jets. They have to make quick decisions. That's what all those systems are made for. And so that movement was essentially not losing lock, but letting him know he's losing confidence. Now, the darting to the left thing, you have to understand that what he's talking about is acceleration. The speed that these things take off at, that I have seen, that many others have seen, they do not match up with anything even human controlled. And I have to clarify that, because it's obvious that there couldn't be a human body inside of that craft. As fast as it took off, you would have been liquefied. Unless there was some weird sci-fi tech inside that gave you like a gravity bubble or something, you would be liquefied if you went that fast, right? And so the next step would be, okay, it's more than likely, and this is why everyone says Russian drones. It had to have been something piloted by somebody else. Well, if you take into account the accounts of people like Fravor, like Dietrich, before you had these cameras, before you had this lock on, these things were doing what a lot of people describe as ping-ponging, and it's how I would describe it as well. They're not staying in one place. It's not like they're flying in a smooth path like a jet. These things are darting around at different angles. So you're talking about multiple Gs. That the rate at which they change direction literally could not be controlled by a human being. That is a part that I think is overlooked by a lot of UFO enthusiasts, that this ping-ponging, your brain literally cannot react fast enough to change directions as quickly and control the craft.
Right.
That is a huge factor. And when he says it darted to the left in a way after turning that did not make sense, it literally couldn't even be controlled by a person. So the only option you're really left with is an AI-controlled, unmanned vehicle, essentially a AI-controlled UAV. Was that something that Russians and Chinese had in 2004? You have to start looking at things realistically. Did they leapfrog us in 2004 and have just been, playing their cards close to their chest, for 17 years? Is that something that Russians and Chinese are known for doing? I just don't buy that. I'm really left with that explanation of non-human intelligence,
And, I agree with most of that, Manny, especially, the testimony of David and Alex, that's can't really be denied. But I do want to push back on the radar stuff a little bit and the losing the lock. Kind of my interpretation of, if the bars widen and it's losing confidence, that kind of is indicative that it's beginning to lose lock, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought that there was a inherent contradiction in Chad Underwood's interview here when he was talking about, they acquired the target first with the radar, the active radar, right? And he says that's kind of how they focus and get all the locks and all the things looking at the target. But then he goes on and says that it starts to jam his radar. And so that to me, then when they go and say, they're looking at the video that we all see, and he says that the range is 999. That means that we're being actively jammed. That makes me think it's very credible that this target could be not, it jammed it and it lost the target, lost the lock, and it zoomed off to the left like Mick West hypothesizes.
Well, speaking of Mick West, he says, he's here. He says it does not take NHI to trigger a move to the left.
Very good point.
Not that there was one. So that's
Nick
interesting.
believes that this was the pilot losing the lock and turning his plane.
And not even the pilot, just the internals of the mechanism of the camera.
Do we want? Is Mick what? Mick, do you want to hop on?
I mean, if Mick's available,
yeah, get Mick West to hop on. Again,
yeah, I mean,
I'm not an imager guy. Get Mick West in here.
I'll send him the link right now. If he's, I know Mick. He's if he's got time, he'll hop on. But
he definitely will.
Last time we tried to do this, he was I think grocery shopping, and his he wasn't connected to Wi-Fi, so it didn't work as well.
But he did have the printed out copy of the UAPTF report on him.
He sure did. He sure did.
On his person.
Even when he was shopping.
Yes. But grocery list and UAPTF report. You imagine how crazy he looks when he checks out?
Yeah.
Well, UAPTF was on the front. The grocery list was on the back.
Real quick, I do have the video of Mr. Underwood saying exactly what we were talking about of this object darting off to the left. So I'm going to go ahead and play that part here real quick. And we can comment on it.
We see it appears the object shoots off to our left. Is that indeed what happened?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And did you radio into the Princeton and ask them, where is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the Princeton was our controller to begin with, if this tic-tac never existed. And so I immediately got on the radar. I'm like, hey, where is this thing? Because I only have a certain scan volume with my radar and my FLIR. And
that's something, just FYI, that's something that Jeremy Corbell is really adamant about, is that the both the Spy One radar and I'm forgetting the other name of the other radar system, Spy One, and what was the other radar system?
Talking about Aegis?
No, was it the Aegis radar system?
That would be on the ship. Yeah, that would be on the ship.
So there's two different radar systems, and he said that both of those radar systems, once it darted to the left, lost it. And that's what he's asking right now. Is he's asking the Princeton, hey, did you guys see where the hell this thing went? And according to Jeremy, that's a big part of this story, because all three of these radar systems essentially lost. Not only did they lose the target on the radar systems, but they also lost visual of it as well.
That's what I was pointing to with the acceleration. I know that, Mick West is, I'm telling you right now, one of the best internet trolls of all time. And the inner troll in me, I love when he says shit like that, because even though he's picking on me, I love it because it is funny. But the speed and accelerations I'm discussing. You have to maintain a certain control of your craft if you're a UAV pilot, right? Those things can go faster than most people fly UAV. There is an SOP and a limit to what you can do. If this thing went so fast that the ship lost not only visual of it, which is common for a ship to lose visual, but lost their tools capability to see it, which goes way beyond anything the human eye can do. I'm telling you, the speed is something that a human being could not control. Now, could you say that there is semi-autonomous weapon systems? Of course, we have those already. We have drone AI already. It's been publicly announced, which blew my mind that they publicly announced it, but they did, I think, about 4 years ago, right? So we do have semi-autonomous weapon systems that are semi-controlled by AI. The question is, did we have a drone like that in 2004? Did we have a hypersonic one in 2004? Did our enemies leapfrog us and make that in 2004? That's my question. Because if it went to the left that fast that a pilot lost visual, listen, I've talked to a lot of pilots. That happens. Things move, they fuck up, they lose visual. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, he's not going to admit if he messed up. But if he's saying the ship's tools, the ship's capabilities lost sight of this thing, you're in another ballpark now. It's not like, oh, he can't see it, and then there's a guy on the ship with a telescope, it's 1800s, like, oh shit, I can't see it, oh well. These systems are extremely complicated, and they also, by the way, work in tandem with other ships nearby. So one of the things, again, that's kind of under the surface here, not being said, is that if they have no visual of it, they're almost certainly contacting other ships nearby and saying, do you have visual of it? If no one has any clue where this thing went, that speed is outrageous. That's not a guy with a joystick. That's not a simple AI. That would have to be a massive leapfrog in technology if this happened in 2004.
Oh boy, okay, I can see Mick West in the corner here, just
ready.
raring to go. Ready. He's clean shaven. Go. Resting Mick face is not engaged at the moment. We've actually got a beautiful smile on the man. I enjoyed your conversation with Chris Lito, but if you can respond to what Manny just said.
Manny's point. The reason I chimed in earlier was that he was saying that if it zipped off so quickly, that it must have been some kind of non-human intelligence. Now I could see that for some of the other stuff that has been described, like ping-ponging around like that. But all we see in this video, and this actually reminds me of my having to defend the cold bird hypothesis that Jeremy Corbell throws out, because it's not actually a hypothesis I subscribe to, but if he says something wrong, I feel compelled to say something about it. All it does is it moves sideways. If it's something that's controlled by a human, they could just press a movement and it would move sideways. You don't need a non-human intelligence just to start moving to the left. That doesn't mean anything. Like for the other stuff, yeah. But really, the really important point here is that I don't think it does move to the left. I think that everything I said in my previous analysis of it still stands. And now Chris Lito kind of agrees with me. I don't know if he's going to change his mind.
Could you re for folks who don't know what your analysis was, could you share that, Mick?
Sure. Essentially, we're talking about the Nimitz video, the Tic Tac video, and we see this little object on the screen and it moves around a bit. And at the end of the video, it looks like it shoots off to the left. But if you look at the speed at which the camera is tracking, you look at the number at the top of the screen, you see it's moving at about 1/4 degree per second. And if you track how fast the object moves off the screen at the end, it too moves at 1/4 degree per second, which means that it just lines up exactly with the camera simply stopping moving, and the object just continuing moving at exactly the same rate as it was moving before. And we see throughout the video, we see these widening of the bars every time there's a camera movement, which it's like Manny was saying earlier, it's a loss of confidence of the tracking system. So essentially, it's saying, oh, kind of, where is this thing? Kind of widening its bars as such rhythm, and it regains this solid lock on it. At the end, it simply doesn't regain the solid lock, and the thing just simply drifts off to the side. There's no sudden movement, and that essentially is my argument.
When you say it drifts, are you saying that the pilot is actually drifting and the object is reflecting that in the image?
What we're seeing, I think, is the Underwood's in a plane. This is an interesting thing. Like he's the WSO, the Wizzo. He's in the back seat. Someone else is piloting the plane, but it's in autopilot. It's just simply flying forward in a straight line. There's the object that they're tracking is in front of them somewhere, and it is moving to the left and seemingly a bit away from them. And because it's moving to the left, the camera has to keep turning to track it. But at some point, because Underwood is flipping through all these camera modes, the camera eventually fully loses lock, and then it just simply stops tracking the object, and the object continues moving at the exact same rate it was moving before. Nothing changes other than the camera stops moving. And it visually drifts off the screen, but really it's not doing anything.
Camera stops moving, object keeps going.
Yep, exactly.
Got it.
And I'd argue if the object is actively trying to jam their radar, that's what we would expect to see.
Well, the radar isn't doing the tracking at that point. It's a purely visual thing, and it's just losing lock on the object simply because the picture has been disrupted. And in that particular instance, it was because it changed from medium field of view to narrow field of view. And during that thing, it lost confidence, and you could see the thing just kind of gets just past one of the bars, and then it just carries on. The other instances, it manages to regain lock. And this is just the one time it didn't regain lock, full confidence, and then it lost lock.
Right.
Manny, or I was going to say, I wonder if Manny's got a rebuttal to that.
So again, I'm not an avionics or jet pilot guy. My issue really is with Intel. Then the question then becomes, is Chad Underwood lying? Because the main issue for me is that when he reached out to the people on the ship, they had also said that essentially they lost it when it moved to the left. So then either everyone's... Go ahead. No, go ahead.
They said that exactly. I mean,
well, if they lost it too, then what happened? That's my question. If the ship lost it, again, this again isn't really like it's not really like a fair argument, because again, I'm kind of from behind the scenes and I'm not an avionics guy, but I have seen some of the other stuff, and I'm telling you that if the ship lost it, that is not a simple jammer by the Chinese or Russian government. That is not something that's just oh whoops, So it's either Chad Underwood is lying about what the Nimitz told him, or I don't know what. It just stopped, and then they just didn't have it, because there is really no other option. If the ship lost sight of it,
a long time. I think it's been like whatever it is, 17 years, and he doesn't recall exactly what happened, and perhaps he doesn't recall even a few years after when he was giving these interviews. And that's another interesting thing. Like all of a sudden, this executive report that we've all been referring to for years turns out it's complete bullshit. Like everything in it is now completely up for grabs as being false, because it gives great detail about him saying that there was no jamming cues and all these other things, and now apparently he never even gave an interview for it.
Right.
So what's going on with that? That interview, that document, by the way, mentions the Civic that you Manny, you seem kind of excited about that.
Right. My issue is that I've personally seen the cover up close, which is again why I say this is not necessarily fair back and forth. Right. We would need an avionics guy in here. We would also need someone from the Nimitz, and we would need a representative of whoever was in the Civic in there. What I'm saying is that when I hear things like I reported something, and then later on a report came out and I wasn't even interviewed for it, like that for me touches a nerve. Like I've been through those experiences before. So again, I would lean more towards this person who's active duty and putting his career at stake, saying, hey, this is what happened, and also the ship lost sight. I put more credence into what he's saying. That's all that I'm saying.
But I have talked to an avionics technician. He didn't want to go on the record, but I do have a transcript of the description, and he basically agreed with me that what happens at the end is that he simply lost lock and it drifted off to the side. I talked to Chris Lato, and he agrees with me. I mean, he might change his mind now that this other interview has come out, but he essentially went through the video in detail, analyzed it, which I don't think is something that Chad Underwood has actually done. He still seems to be thinking that it zipped off really rapidly at the end, when the actual rate of departure from the screen is relatively slow. You get this illusion of it looking fast because of this change to 2x zoom, but it's not actually moving very, very fast. So I really don't think that Underwood has really looked at his own video in great depth, frame by frame, analyzing exactly what's going on. I think he's got this idea in his mind of what happened, but I think he really should revisit it.
Rather, were you going to say something there?
Well, I was just going to mention, he did say that after he zoomed off to the left, he called the Nimitz and they weren't able to find it. But I don't think we know when, if at all, they had registered it. Like, I don't know if they lost it or if they just, never actually ever had a track on it.
He also mentioned that there was no air traffic or no known air traffic in the area. What do you make of that, Mick?
Well, I think Kevin Day mentioned that there was like other things in the area there. Like he said, there was an exercise going on, and he had to cancel the exercise. I don't remember the exact details of that, but yeah, I mean, sure.
And so you think they had a lock on a commercial airliner?
No, I think it's more likely it was one of the other fighters as part of the exercise. I can't say for sure, but I think that fits the geometry and everything and the distances that were involved. So, I kind of, my feeling here, and I'd love to have more clarity, is that Chad Underwood kind of messed up and accidentally locked on to another of the fighters and just didn't realize this, and there was this confusion going on because of all the excitement about UFOs
right.
and things like that. And the video, I think, backs that up in that there isn't something moving very rapidly at the end, and the technicians who have looked into it agree with me on that, and I'd love to get more input on that from other technicians who understand how the camera works.
Well, this is kind of where I'm going to fight back with you a little bit, Mick. I find it an incredibly hard pill to swallow that he's so mistaken that he's an active duty officer still telling this same mistaken story. I feel like if you're locked onto your own jet, your own fleet of jets, wouldn't warning systems come up on your radars? Wouldn't you figure that out after about, 45 seconds of tracking this thing that, oh, that's just Jerry. Okay, all right, that's just Jerry. Let's move on. And if that is the case, why is this story bubbled to the surface and become the, I don't want to call it the gold standard, but sort of the thing that is propelling this discussion on a congressional and state level? I just don't, that's where I find it very difficult to believe that this is just a lock on another plane, because if it was, why are we talking about this?
Well, it's a cool story, but has anybody seen the radar tapes? Why hasn't that been shown to Congress? Why isn't that part of the classified report? Why isn't that super compelling that something's actually going on there? We haven't heard any peep that that's actually something that actually happened. And I would just go back to the video. What you see at the end is the thing moving off the screen, and then the video ends. What happens after that? Chad says he slews his plane around. Which is kind of a ridiculous thing. If there's something 10 miles in front of him and it's drifting at a quarter of a degree per second off the screen, you're not going to turn your plane 45 degrees. It's moving at a quarter of a degree per second. You would need to just simply widen the field of view on your camera or just slew the camera over a little bit. It's really not moving very fast at all.
Which again goes to the argument that you would have to believe he's lying. That's my issue. You'd also have to believe that the DOD would confirm a video as a UFO, but it's just a guy locked onto his buddy.
Wait, you have to remember that these two videos came out. Wait 1 second, Mick. You said something there. You said somebody was lying.
I don't think he's lying.
Okay, you just think he's lying. You just think he's 100% mistaken.
I think he's mistaken about what he's seeing in the video. Specifically what. It moving off the side of the screen. Yeah. The other stuff about identifying planes and stuff, I'm less certain about that type of thing because I don't really, I'm no expert on that. But just looking at the video, which I've done in great depth for years, but I think I have a very good understanding of what's actually going on in that video. And a lot of people agree with me that it is just you're following something that is not making any sudden moves. It's just continuing to move. The camera stops moving and it continues to move, and that's all. And
but is it
fast? It wouldn't break the lock. Those cameras are capable of going. And they've got the internal mirrors that can go even faster.
Right.
Something moving at a quarter of a degree per second isn't going to break the lock. That's just ridiculous.
Right. But I mean, it's also fair to say that a lot of these folks that do agree with you are basing it off exactly what you're basing it off of, which is the data. And that's fair, right? Like, you can only base this opinion off of what we actually see. Everything else is kind of hearsay. It's not written in a report. There's no way to verify it. It's very difficult because, again, it's coming from our government. All these things are classified. But there's a totality to this, though, that I feel like we're kind of just blowing right past. And I just find it difficult that all of these apparatuses are saying the same thing, even though the video is not displaying what they're talking about. But again, you've got a commander, an active fighter pilot. What is the motivation to tell this story? Well, hold on a second. But like, if he really thought somewhere in his brain, he's got to think, shit, man, maybe I'm just wrong on this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I did make a mistake. I have a feeling that would cross his mind. And I think if that creeps into your brain, it starts to grow bigger and bigger, especially the more and more you look over the situation and play it in your brain. And in 20 years, this guy's he's not fallen off of this. He's not changing the story, and he doesn't think what he saw was a mistake. So that's where I'm just kind of like, I know what you're saying. You're looking at the math. You want to see the work done. And I appreciate that 100%. But at what point, I guess, who has to say something where you'd be like, okay, that guy's credible. I can totally believe what this person's saying. Is there anyone, or do you need
two things there? First of all, you're saying he hasn't changed his story. No, I think the reason he hasn't changed his story is that he hasn't really looked into his story. He's just going by whatever his memory of and his perception of it at the time.
Okay, can I stop you right there real quick?
Real quick, I want to finish that thought. He needs to analyze his own video, and he's not done that. He's not gone through his video, analyzed it, and figured out what's going on at each segment. He's just, it zoomed off quickly at the end. And that's where he stopped. He stopped thinking.
But isn't that kind of like asking a professional basketball player to go back and, and work on his free throws when he's shooting at 90%
because this is
clip?
The type of thing that they do. They do not go and analyze videos frame by frame to see why they lost log. They don't look at things and see, is there a gimbal roll here? They don't understand the internals of these systems. They understand how to use them and how they normally work. But when something goes like a bit wrong, like it has here, they don't like sit and analyze the video frame by frame. That's what technicians are for, and that's why we actually need technicians to do it, and not the the basketball player doing it. When something goes wrong with the net, you don't have the basketball player do it. You have somebody come out with his wrench and fix it. We got to get the right person for the right job. But the second thing there, real quick, you said, why is this the gold standard? Which is a great question. Why is the Nimitz encounter the gold standard? It's amazing. It's got all these things. It's got the radar things. It's got Fravor and Dietrich's encounter. It's got this video, and it's got disappearing tapes and things like that. Why is this the gold standard? Why is it so amazing? And I think the simple answer for me is that every 20 years or so, things line up. There's a series of coincidences. Say every 20 years, a 1 in a million thing happens, which isn't that unlikely. Occasionally, this is just the one that bubbles to the top, because it's the one where the most interesting things just happen to happen in combination. It doesn't mean that it's made of gold. It's the thing that bubbled to the top.
Right. Can I ask you this, Mick? What do you think when it comes to this other plane that you think he locked on to? Do we have any evidence or data to back that up? Like, do we know where the other planes were? Do we have any idea if they were on radar or if they were in communication with the Nimitz or the Princeton? Like, where? I mean, obviously, you've laid out a very clear idea of how this happened, how this could have happened, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, it makes a lot of sense. What I don't understand is where is the data to show that there was another plane in that area that he could have locked onto?
Yeah, well, we wouldn't have that, but I talked to Kevin Day, and Kevin Day, as you know, gives a variety of different accounts over the years. But he said that there was a lot of confusion going on, and that there was planes up in the air at that time, where they were. If he's saying there's confusion, what does that mean? He's the guy who was in charge of dispatching them and shepherding them around from his position in the radar room. So if he said there was a lot of confusion, then perhaps one of the planes was where it shouldn't have been, and perhaps Chad didn't recognize that immediately, and perhaps his radar wasn't working. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened.
Right,
What I do know, I think, is that it didn't zoom off to the side. It didn't demonstrate this incredible physics. It's something more boring.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But wouldn't somebody have that data though? Wouldn't they be able to go back and track where those planes were? And if that's the case, why on earth would the Pentagon say these are UFOs?
Yeah, why wouldn't they just straighten out the story? How does the
Pentagon? It should be on radar.
It should be on radar.
Yeah, I don't know what the situation is there. I mean, maybe they don't have the data for some reason. Maybe they lost it, and it seems ridiculous. Or maybe the equipment wasn't working, and the AppFLIR heading indicator isn't the actual correct heading. Or maybe some other reason. I don't know. I mean, all I can tell you is like what I've got from analyzing the video. Something else I talked about with Chris Lato was the heat signature of this thing. People talk about how there's no heat source on it. Yes, but there is. I went through that with Chris.
The whole thing.
Can you explain that as well?
Flare.
Can you
Yeah, if you look at something in infrared, you expect to see a hot spot where the engines are. If you think you're looking at the back of a 747 or something, you can see 4 hot spots where the engines are. But if it's far away and small, if it's only a few pixels, then these hot spots tend to kind of glare up, so you're just going to see a kind of a blob where it is. Now, right at the start of the video, we see this weird star shape. We don't see any tic-tac shape or any shape like that. We see this star shape, which I think is just the glare from the engines of the plane. So we are actually seeing a heat signature. So people saying there is no heat signature, I think that's wrong.
Well,
and
Chris,
later on, we see the heat signature move over to the right-hand side, which kind of indicates a plane flying towards the left, which is what we actually see with the changing head indicator and the continuation of the plane moving to the left.
Well, I mean, Chris Lato did agree with you, I think, on the heat signature aspect of it, but he's like, I've never seen a heat signature that looks like that. That's sort of his rationale. And again, like, if this thing is moving, these radar systems, these visual systems, I feel like he would have been able to figure out very, very quickly, oh, it's a plane. It's.
Well, yeah, I think it's pretty clear that it's not in focus. And one thing you can see on screen on the lower right-hand side, it says FOCS 8, which is the upper range of the manual focuses. But I believe it should actually be on 9, which is the setting it should have used for far distances. So it could be just it was out of focus. I did some analysis of that, and I analyzed the spread of the pixels and the actual spread of the pixels around the edge of the shape in TV mode is like 3 or 4 times the size of the spread of the pixels of the on-screen display. So the actual underlying image is blurred before the additional blur that's got from these multiple generations of videos being on top of that. So I think he's looking at an image that's out of focus, so he couldn't tell what it was because of that.
All right, Manny, I can see you chomping at the bit, and then we've got two $5 donations. We got 3 minutes to end the show, but I want to get to these questions as quickly as I can. So I'm going to give you final thoughts, Manny, and then we'll ask Mick these 2 questions for him.
So for me, the big issue is really we're looking at Nimitz like this one encounter defines the whole thing. When they called these people off of their exercise, you had days of tracking objects that were completely unidentified. So either these state-of-the-art radar systems and tracking systems were tracking our own planes by accident, or Chinese and Russian whatever craft for days, and these were just misinterpreted, or the greatest, intelligence apparatus in the world's history failed for 3 days. Because, you have to understand that if a ship is having issue identifying something with their tools, that doesn't just stop. These ships are worth hundreds of millions, and not billions of dollars when you include, maintenance and things like that, right? If one of these assets says, we have things near us while we're training and we have no clue what they are, it's not like the rest of the government just goes, oh, shit, well, that sucks, man. I go figure it out. They then essentially go further out into this onion of the intelligence community until everybody can explain something. You have to understand there's a lot of stuff. Again, it sucks that it's hidden from the public view, but when they call these pilots to go check whatever this is out, that is not a random call. That is a very serious decision that has been made after consulting probably many members of the intelligence community. Could look at this. Now, could this one have been a random weird heat source that didn't move one off? Sure. Does that mean that we discount radar technicians saying they saw multiple objects ping-ponging, something in the water, pilots seeing this thing move at rapid speed? When you take what we call the totality of the circumstances into effect, this does not seem like something that is normal. And that's probably why the DoD called these videos UFOs or UAP, is because after pulling in everything they could from, again, the greatest intel apparatus that this world has ever known, they could not identify what these were. That doesn't mean, again, maybe one of these guys on the intel side is like on Mick West side, and they're like, yeah, this one was just like a pilot coming in to check out what's going on, and then he just went off real slow. Or maybe it was just a weather balloon that went off real slow. But the totality of the circumstances that went on around the Nimitz, again, it can't be, we can't like shorthand that massive event that happened. And could it be 1 in a million? Maybe the Chinese just leapfrogged us and just went, hey, let's just show off this one time. Maybe. I don't believe that. Could it have been everyone got it wrong all over the place? Maybe. But again, I don't believe that. I think that when you look at, again, the totality of the circumstances, there were UFO or UAP there that day.
And then to double down on that, we got the New York Post, Stephen Greenstreet in the house, and he says Fravor saw the Tic Tac. Dietrich says she saw something. Jason Turner says he saw the Tic Tac in the CIC. Gary Voorhees says he saw the Tic Tac. Did they all see the same Underwood plane?
The ones who saw the video were all seeing the same thing. Only Fravor and Dietrich and Slay and the other guy got eyes on, and we know that Dietrich only saw it for 10 seconds.
But did the intel overwatch for the plane also, or the ship also see just a random plane?
We don't know.
That's my issue, is that there's more going on here. That again, it sucks because you can't see it.
Yeah, you're assuming that they made this big determination that there's this huge unknown here. It may just be there's some smaller unknowns within the picture. Maybe they determined that all these initial targets on the radar that were drifting down the screen were just radar glitches, like they originally thought they were. Perhaps there was something strange going on with Fravor and Dietrich. Perhaps there was something strange going on with that video. But it doesn't mean there's a huge mystery. There maybe is a couple of smaller mysteries.
Oh, geez, man. I wish they would just nip this in the bud so we could stop arguing about it.
Yeah, me too.
Damn. Jesus Christ. I mean, it feels like, if there was nothing to it, they would just say that. But that's just me. Jane, you've been quiet for a little bit. Any thoughts on what's been discussed here?
No, this is all wonderful. Mick, to your point that this is, something that just bubbled to the top. I think that's kind of what ufology is to me. It's the things that bubble to the top. And so I think we always learn from them. And I think the other big thing is, this is the public UAP report. I mean, this isn't even the public UAP report. This is just what's being leaked, shared to the public. And so I wouldn't expect anything at this point that would definitively prove the phenomenon or alien visitation at this point. So I'm waiting for the day where we get something that Mick West is just as amazed by that.
Well, according to Mick, the standard is 2 angles. Get them 2 angles from 2 different planes, 2 different videos with some triangulate it. And I think you're right. I agree. I think everyone in this panel will 100% agree with you on that, man. We need triangulation of the phenomenon.
T-shirts, I think.
There you go.
Green triangle on it.
Yeah. Or we could just add the triangulate maneuver into the new Tony Hawk Pro Skater. That sounds like a new skateboard move. Okay, so so we did have 2 $5 questions. I don't want to miss these because that would be so rude. So the first,
I think one he already answered.
Oh, did he? Okay, was that for Bricktop?
It was the same. It was the same as Greenstreet from Bricktop. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so then the other one is from Eventide. He says the radar data may have been lost because the people that took the bricks were technicians there too. Were technicians there to troubleshoot anomalies, got lost in the shop.
That was what I was kind of alluding to earlier. Like if they confiscated all the data and that meant it was all in one spot, I don't know how the backup system works for something like that. If they took it off the ship, then it's not on the ship anymore. Where did it go? Maybe they lost it, or maybe it's in a different department, and the UAP task force didn't really have the wherewithal to wiggle it out again.
Again, I wish the Department of Defense and the Navy and the OSI and the FBI and the CIA would go find these goddamn files.
Give us the
and share them with us, so we can come to a determination on this. But it's like Alex Dietrich said, it's a cold case. Like, we're never gonna solve this. We're like, to see this object again is gonna be impossible, if not improbable. It's just the odds of it happening again are gonna be slim to none. But who knows? You know, let's see what happens in the near future. All right. So with all of that out of the way, rather, if we want to fire up the music, let's get this going, and then we can say. Or did I miss a question? Rather, was that a question that I missed? That you
more of a statement
okay.
From Leo Brenzo saying Mick West, if there was any other jet fighter, he would be able to track again. Jets and birds don't just dissipate from radar.
But we don't have a continuous picture of what happened on the radar, so we don't know if it just disappeared or if he just,
And you know, that's fair. There's another question.
Playing around, apparently.
there was another question from Dricktop that fell off the top of the screen, and he was asking for a comment about the whole fleet of them commented that one of those videos.
Yeah,
if you have a quick
that's
explanation for that.
I don't know what that is. But it's something different to what was on the video. So,
right,
fair enough.
There you go. All right. Well, you know what, Mick? Thank you so much for popping in here, man, and always checking out our show. Because I do love when you comment, you just pop in here, because it's always fun to talk to you, because you do add some wonderful perspectives. And I really enjoyed the hell out of that discussion between you and Chris Lito. And if you ever need a moderator for one of those, let me know, man. I'll pop in there for you, because I thought it was a beautiful discussion. So I can't wait for the next one. Cool. Until next time, Mick, would you like to tell everyone? Obviously, you always go with just Google Mick West, Metabunk, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and you'll find them.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, Mick, we'll have a good rest of your week, and I'm hoping before Friday we get the smoking gun, and then we'll have you on again.
Mick, are you coming to the Big Phone Home this year?
Oh, good question, Mick. Here's the deal, Mick, right? This year, this time we're asking for congressional hearings, right? We want to get some congressional hearings, maybe some more data for Mick West. Maybe Mick wants to come on Science Day for the Singularity Lab and talk to a couple of Harvard professors or folks from the SCU and see, you know what would be cool? I'd like to see Mick West on the Galileo project.
We'll see. I'll be happy to talk to any of those guys. I've talked to the Skyhub people before.
Yeah. Awesome.
And they are working on triangulation.
I'm taking that as
I'm taking that as a yes. Yeah. I'm taking that as a yes. Mick West. Big Phone Home 2. Day 2. He'll be there. Excellent. No, we can't. We put his name on the last time I put his name on my post.
I gotta go. It's dinner time here. My wife's Bye.
All right, sir. We'll see you soon. Oh man, that's funny. That's funny. Okay, Manny.
You just look up the Fringe Center. You can look up Fringe Center on Twitter. And Stephen Greenstreet hit me up.
Oh, excellent. Well, maybe we could get a comment. Man, I would have loved to get Greenstreet in here.
I think
maybe next time we could get.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Now, I was just say, I think Greenstreet has talked to more people that were involved in intelligence. Again, where all of this leads, right? It's essentially, when you think about it, this is like the Wizard of Oz, right? But this yellow brick road that everyone wants to find that leads to disclosure is the one place that very few people are looking. It all leads to intel. That's where you have to go.
No, I think you're right, man. I think you're right. And you made some wonderful points today. And Greenstreet, if you want to get on the show next week and talk about this, I'd love to have you on. We could get you and Manny in on the same show and have this discussion, because Greenstreet has been having some revelation. He just saw Mirage Man, which, Michael, you gotta watch. You gotta watch it because it absolutely blew Greenstreet's face off. But Manny Miranda, thank you so damn much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. It was a last second request, but I know you always have some wonderful insight, and I cannot wait to see you for the Big Phone Home and before that, because we're definitely going to have you on very soon.
No problem. I'll see you guys.
Thank you again. All right, peace.
Thanks, Manny.
Let's say goodbye to
Rather Be Squidding. For those of you who aren't a follower of Rather Be Squidding on YouTube, make sure you go. If you're interested in fringe science, if you're interested in breaking technology, and you like a little spoonful of skepticism, go follow. And make sure you follow him on Twitter. Rather, we love you, brother.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Fun as always.
Oh my God, I love this kid. All right, there he goes. There he goes. There he goes.
He did it. He did it.
Miss Jane Kyle, the one and only UFO Jane, Texas UFO researcher, historian, star of the Discovery Plus show. Roswell, the final verdict. Go check it out. They're giving a 7-day free trial. You can check out all of her episodes for free right now. And I got to tell you guys, again, I said this when McClellan was on, Discovery Plus is making some really great paranormal shows. So if you're into the topic, go check it out because they've got 2 of them up there on there that I'm having a really great time with. So Ben Hansen show, I'm forgetting the name of it, but he's got a great show on there as well, and I got to go back and finish it. So Jane, real quick before you go, fill in the folks where they can find you.
Yep, so as usual, UFO Jane. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and all of that. If you're in Texas, if you've seen something, definitely let me know. And I do have a website now, weirdufos.com, because I have all these random places where things are, so I'm trying to put some of the latest and greatest there. If folks want to follow along.
Right on. Well, thank you, Jane, for being here. It's always a pleasure. We'll see you, I'm sure, next week.
Yeah.
Ooh. Skinny Bob liked your show.
Did he?
Right there. Look, Skinny Bob.
Final verdict is amazing.
Loved the final verdict.
Yeah? Okay. I thought he was talking about my show.
He loves your show too.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, clearly, right? He's here.
He's here.
He's here. So he loves the show. Well, thank you guys so very damn much for joining us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFOs. My name's Luis Jimenez. Oh, look at this. We got a $10 super chat right before the show is over from Schoolcraft, the super sticker. Thank you so much, Schoolcraft. You're such a huge supporter of the show. And thank you to everyone who threw super chat questions and super stickers in there. You guys, again, we are a public access channel. We provide 5 shows a week, Monday through Friday, between the Singularity Lab, between the Unidentified Celebrity Review. We do so much work behind the scenes, and we are supported by viewers like you. This is very much public access television, so we are glad that you guys are here. We're glad that you guys are able to support us in any way you can. If you can't do it financially, just share, like, subscribe to the channel, and that goes a very, very long way into helping us grow and finding more folks that can't donate financially, because that makes the world go round here. It gives us the ability to provide these shows every day. So definitely check out the links in the description below for both me, Michael, and Rather's in there, and UFO Jane's in there. But you'll find our link tree, you'll find our Patreon's ways to support. I'm going to be posting the Big Phone Home 2 posters right now on Twitter, so go check that out. Actually, I'll do it to my Patreon first. I'm going to give my Patreon a little bit early access to the posters. And this is not a hacker man hack. I'm just going to go ahead and put it up there for a few hours, let you guys enjoy it first, and then I'll tweet it out to the world. So there you go. There you go. First special access ever granted on the Patreon.
By a non-hacker. By a non-hacker. And make sure tomorrow we've got an amazing show for you on the Singularity Lab. Massimo Teodorani. He's an Italian astrophysicist, best-selling author, public speaker. Amazing book, The Hyperspace of Consciousness, is going to be on the Singularity Lab tomorrow. So make sure you click the link below and go subscribe. Click the bell. And also on Apple Podcast and Spotify, you can now find, you've been able to find UCR there for a hot minute. So make sure you go and subscribe to UCR. But also, you can now find the Singularity Lab. So what we would love is for you guys to go give us some review love over there. That really helps us reach more.
Yeah, I've got, I think, 8 reviews. If you listen to the podcast and you're listening to it now, go review it. Please. That helps, right? That helps.
If you got no money to contribute, please.
I'll tell you this, though. Putting the show on Spotify, man, the downloads have doubled in 1 month. So I'm glad there's a lot of new listeners out there. Welcome to the show. And yeah, now you've got the ability to listen to both shows 5 days a week, at the office, on the road, wherever you're at. And that's always a good thing, right? And it's all free. Everything's free. We don't charge you guys for anything. So once again, thank you all so much out there for the support, the love. Yeah, Big Phone Home 2. It's happening, you guys. It's going to be a really, really cool time. So stay tuned for more. Until next time, we love you all very, very much. So close. So close. Anyway, thanks, guys. Peace.